From Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live 13 December 2014. Episode 125, A Fin for Every Occasion. Well, welcome again to another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive, and I am your venerable host, Rob Wade. Going solo again. Scuba Bob has called in sick. He said he's feeling a bit under the weather, and he's probably not even watching the show right now, so shame on him. Oh, goodness, we're having I'm having a problem with exposure. One of my cameras. Again, another update to the software. There we go. Back that down just a bit. There we go. Another version of the software that we use for doing our podcast, and unfortunately finding yet more issues with the program. They still haven't fixed the issues that I have expressed problems with and that I've shared with you all before regarding the screen capture problem, and also with a intermittent issue of when we actually start the podcast. We actually click on the selection that says start broadcasting. Everything that we can tell from here looks like we are actually sending the broadcast out, but for some reason we actually aren't. I mean, I can see the internet traffic leaving the computer, going at almost a full 5 megabits per second, which is what's necessary in order to do this show in 720p, which is the bottom end of HD. So every indication looks like we're going out, but when we observe what's going on over on the screen, we see absolutely nothing. So not sure, again, what's going on with this. We didn't used to have this problem, but it's this latest version that they've been version 2.xxx that they've been working on. We've had these problems with, so it's very frustrating as you could probably guess. So look in the chat room. Looks like we may have John in there again from who was watching us last week. Title of the episode this week is A Fin for Every Occasion. A couple of weeks ago, you may remember that we talked about masks and how you make those selections, etc. And from all reports I can tell, is that was a very beneficial episode, talking about the different types of masks that you can choose to go with. And this week, I actually had somebody come up today, as a matter of fact, and ask me about all of that. Fins, masks. Basically, they're getting ready for a trip to Belize, and so they wanted to do some snorkeling. They're not quite ready to dive into scuba diving, as it were. But, they figured, okay, being a scuba diver, I would have some recommendations on the personal, what we call a personal equipment: mask, fin, snorkel, mask, fin, snorkel, wetsuit, that would not be your typical buy at Walmart kind of thing. And of course, she was right. And I thought, okay, well, that's a wonderful topic to extend past just just going on to the rest of the personal gear. So I thought, well, let's talk about the fins tonight. So that's and there's actually quite a variety that you can choose from, and we'll get into some of the pitfalls as well as some of the recommendations a little bit later in the show. We don't have a movie review tonight because things have been so busy we haven't been able to go see a movie, and there just hasn't been anything worth watching since Interstellar came out. However, this weekend did open the movie Exodus, Gods and Kings, which is based on the book of Exodus, which is in the Old Testament of the Bible. And we're actually looking forward to that. It looks good, but then we were looking forward to Noah, and that was just pure fabrication. There was almost, other than the names, there was no resemblance to actual scripture. So that was just a disgusting waste of money. I'm hoping that that Exodus is this generation's kind of 10 Commandments kind of thing. Because 10 Commandments, although it differed quite a bit from Scripture, and it kind of looks in the same way that this movie may as well, mostly because the Charlton Heston played Moses in the 10 Commandments, and of course, he is was the late Charlton Heston. He was very good on stage, or on the film and on stage. He was eloquent in his speech. His voice is very well known, and he was very comfortable in all sorts of speaking situations, not just in front of the cameras. And of course, according to Scripture, Moses was not all that good a talker, so he actually had some help in that arena when actually talking to Pharaoh, etc. And it looks like that Christian Bale, who I believe is cast in the role of Moses in this movie, is also doing all the speaking, so it means that they're probably not adhering, at least in that particular area, tightly to Scripture. But I hope that's as much of the poetic license that they take as far as accuracy. So we'll see. But I'm doing the show, of course, so we're not going to see the movie. So I've got you guys in mind as I concentrate on this, doing the show. So no movie reviews yet, and so I expect that we'll be coming up on, if we get some time, to go see Exodus, and then of course the theatrical version, the movie version of Into the Woods, is coming out Christmas Day, I believe. So, well, I'm sure we'll have a review on that, and of course stay tuned, because our first episode of the new year will be our movies we're looking forward to for 2015. So be sure to check that out. We'll see if we can compare notes with what you guys are maybe interested in. There was one in particular that was supposed to be coming out earlier this year. Then it got slipped to, I think, November, and then it got pushed all the way well into 2015. So, and I think they changed titles as well. So I hope that actually makes it to release. It was seems like it's suffering from the same situation that Red Dawn did, the reboot of that. The original Red Dawn with a lot of the young bucks that are now old guys now. The late Patrick Swayze, for example, and Leah Thompson and some of the others. That movie spawned, it was excellent, and then a couple of years ago, the reboot of that with the guy who plays Thor and a number of other more current versions of the same Brat Pack, I guess, from the 80s, were in the reboot, but they kept delaying the release of that because in the original it was about the Russians and the Cubans invading the United States, and the reboot involved North Korea, and I think somebody else, the Chinese. So interesting take there, that it took that long to actually get it released. It was delayed almost a full year. So hopefully this movie about time travel, some kids who time travel and unravel things will actually get released. But we'll see if that makes it amongst the 2015 movies we're looking forward to. No real tech news to talk about because basically everybody is kind of got all their stuff released for the holidays, and being the Microsoft fan that I am, there's really nothing new that I'm looking forward to. I'm still holding out for a new flagship device that would be the real successor to the Lumia 1020, and they keep kicking out very capable, very good, and certainly high value. And by high value, I mean for what little money you're paying. Like we're talking as cheap as $50 for some of these Windows phones, but have a lot of good, decent features in them. But they're not what we used to call a hero phone, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to see what they really come out with. Something that's got an even better camera than the 1020, which still, with all the newer devices on all platforms that come out, the camera on the 1020 is still by far the best camera in any smartphone. So for me, I'm looking for them to top even that. And so hopefully Microsoft will not be putting all their eggs in the cheap device bucket, because if they are, they're kind of going to lose those of us who've been, and there's a lot of us who have been clamoring for a new real flagship, not a value flagship like the 830 they tried to claim it was. I'm sorry, the camera's still not as good as the 1020. So, and Apple really isn't coming out with anything. I mean, they've got their iWatch thing that's not selling as great as they probably were expecting. Microsoft has their Band, which is their fitness smart watch device thing that I have zero interest in. And of course, Android has got their plethora of those devices. So, I mean, to me, they're niche devices. Nothing really to write home about. Let's see. Today, very busy day. I kind of jokingly, semi-jokingly, comment that as kind of a affront to the popular Christmas song, this is not the most wonderful time of the year for me. I'm not one of the people that gets wrapped up in a lot of the Christmas festivities and decorations. Thankfully, I leave that to my wife. She just fully embraces that stuff and has a great time with it. And so if you were to go through the door of our studio here, you would see nothing but Christmas throughout the rest of the house. Thankfully, she doesn't have a desire, or at least she doesn't push me to decorate the outside of the house. We have plenty of gaudy neighbors who do that already. So luckily, I get to escape that kind of honey-do list. But so anyway, another reason why this is not necessarily my favorite time of the year is that there's just it should be a relaxing time, a time for happiness and joy and reflection, and yet this seems to be the busiest time, at least on my calendar. I've got just a lot of things going on. I'm being involved. I've got church programs and the band I'm in, Living Water Sound. We end up doing a lot more gigs in the area because of Christmas time, and so that was what was going on this morning. This morning we were at the Plaza del Sol Mall here in Del Rio, Texas, and excuse me while I pick Graza up. Here she is. Say hi to everybody. I'm not gonna say hi. Oh, you're gonna give me a kiss. Okay, good. So we were there this morning. Doing our somewhat regular Christmas gig that we do there, and had a good time. Fairly quick setup, which was kind of unusual for us. But I wish I had some footage, but it's kind of hard to get footage when you're up on the stage. Now, thankfully, this time I got to switch back to the keys because the youth drummer from our church was able to step in and play drums with us. So that freed me up to go back to the keys, which, especially for the Christmas stuff, I much prefer. And as a singer, as a vocalist, it's much easier for me to do more vocally while I'm playing keys than to play drums, because there's a lot more things when you're playing drums. If you're playing them well, there's a lot of physical movement that you have that makes working a microphone, unless you've got a headset microphone, which we don't, makes it difficult to do well. So you have to concentrate more on the drums, and kind of the singing has to take a little bit of a backseat and just concentrate on the absolute critical harmonies, and if there's leads, taking care of that. So with the Christmas music, I get to kind of step forward and concentrate more on the vocals. So we had a good time. And then tomorrow night at 6 p.m., if you happen to be in the Del Rio area, stop by Grace Church there on Kingsway at 6 p.m. and Living Water Sound will be in concert. We'll have a Christmas concert, about a 90-minute program, so you get in and out of there early, and hopefully you have a nice relaxing time when we really should be having a relaxing time, and giving us the opportunity to do something we love, which is playing music. And you'll still get out of there early enough if you still want to do like a late supper or catch a movie or something like that. You likely can. So that's tomorrow night, Sunday at 6 p.m. In place of what might be in a lot of places an evening Sunday service. So if you're in the Del Rio area, definitely encourage you to check that out. And then we also, it looks like we may be at the Plaza del Sol Mall again next Sunday afternoon. We're still waiting for confirmation on whether or not that's going to happen. So we'll keep you posted. We'll put it on our page and on the show page, etc., and you could check that out. Okay, so dive fins. One of the things that we've always tried to encourage with new divers is get your equipment as quickly as possible. Go out and get your regulator and your console, your computer. If you don't want to go with a computer, which is inexpensive as they are now, why not? You get more dive time by diving with computer than with a traditional watch and depth gauge and your dive tables and BC, etc. But there's you actually are required typically to get your personal gear prior to taking the course. Now there are dive operations out there. There are instructors who maybe have a whole dive shop worth of equipment, personal gear, mask, fin, snorkel, wetsuit, that they'll rent you. So you just go in, get sized up, and then you rent it for the duration of the course. But it's always better if you have your own, because even if you choose not to buy the rest of the equipment after the class, which I think is a huge mistake, you still have the personal gear that you can do things like snorkeling, or that you can go and rent the rest of the stuff and not have to pay for the personal gear as far as a rental. But as I mentioned, amongst the personal gear, your mask, which we talked at length about 2 weeks ago, and then your fins also. Now, most divers, I would venture to say, typically will just go out and buy a set of fins based on more superficial more superficial criteria. So they'll be looking at the color and the style, and then hopefully they fit comfortably. Well, here's the thing to remember. It's more important that you select them first for the fit and the style of your diving profile. It's been my observation as an instructor for the entire time I've been an instructor, is that most people starting out, even if they've been snorkeling a while, do not know how to properly fin. They don't know how to properly kick. they typically do a bicycle kick, which is inefficient. I don't care what kind of fins that you get. It won't matter what fins you get. If you bicycle kick, that's inefficient. And you're really not going to be using your fins so much. You're just basically trying to push yourself through the water rather than let the fins do the work they're supposed to do. And then, so many, if not most, probably don't get the right fins the first time. And so they're diving for years with less than optimal fins. Well, then oftentimes the ones who do get it right, those are the only fins they have. I myself have 2 different sets of fins that I use. Now, the reason why I have 2 different sets of fins is because I have come to the awareness over the years of the different styles of diving and different conditions that I dive. Because here's the thing. Different types of fins, as we'll get into a little bit more detail here, different types of fins are designed to work better in different diving environments. Current versus no current, cold water versus hot. There's a number of things that if you want to do alternate kick styles, 2 of the most basic kick styles that divers, once they actually learn how to fin correctly, 2 of the most common finning styles that you see people using early on are the scissor kick, which is the most basic and the proper way to fin most of the time, as opposed to a bicycle kick, which, the finning is not locking your knees, but your legs pretty much straight out, and you're just letting your gluteus maximus do most of the work, as opposed to the bicycle, which is you end up kind of pushing the water through, trying to push against the water, which doesn't work. The other common kick is called a flutter kick, which is done more at the knees, and the work of the fins, if they're designed to handle that, is able to actually propel you through the water. Now, and different types of fins are good for that. Now, there's also the consideration of other aspects of the environment that you're diving in. For instance, you might be diving in an overhead or somewhat enclosed environment, or an environment where there is a lot of silt. So, for instance, if you're diving at a wreck, and I'm by saying that, I'm making the assumption that as a recreational diver, not tech trained, that the wreck you'd be diving in would be something like the Vandenberg or the Spiegel Grove, where it's intentionally sunk as an artificial reef, and that they have big cutouts that let you to go through. Well, eventually silt can collect in that. But certainly this is also true if you are tech qualified and you're diving in caves, or diving in honest to goodness actual wrecks, shipwrecks, where I can guarantee there's lots of silt in them. Certain types of fins are not ideal for that, and you can almost guarantee you're going to get silted out in a dive if you use certain types of fins. So without further ado, let's just kind of go over some, and this is by no means the full gamut of fins that are available. There are, as we talk about some of the basic options, I'll make a reference to, and keep in mind that that there are a number of what do you want to call them, hybrids, that utilize certain aspects of each of these types, kind of in, they said, okay, well, let's take the best of this type and the best of this type, see if we can come up with something that works together. So let me get the screen, the slideshow going here. So one of the most basic types is you've got your choice between a full foot versus the open heel. Now, what you see here is the open heel type, and by that you see where your foot fits into the pocket, and it's just a regular, like a paddle type, and you'll see many, many, many variations on this type. Some will be longer, some will be shorter. They're really, really long ones. If you see some that seem insanely long, those are typically what we call free diving fins. They're designed for those who are actually not scuba diving or snorkeling. They're doing competitive free diving. Okay, so but even within the context of the typical paddle fins, you're going to find that the length of these fins can be can vary quite a bit. Interesting. This is, matter of fact, what you see here in the Coronado by Genesis, which is a good brand. These are what I would call, I guess, moderate length fins. They're not too long, and they look fairly stiff, which should give you a more firm control of the water. Now, you may find that you work harder with those because they're so stiff, and so you may want to, again, because this is personal gear, you may want to try out different fin types, lengths, and materials that maybe are a little bit more flexible and don't give your calf a workout. It's been my experience and experience of a number of divers I've known over the years that if you have a tendency toward getting cramps in your calves, which is the most common cramp that you get next to the and then followed by the right behind your thigh, maybe because of the fins that you have. If they're paddle type, they're too rigid for you, so you may want to go with something a little bit looser, a little bit more flexible to it. But the virtue of the open heel type, and really any style of fin, paddle or otherwise, is that they're typically worn with boots. Okay. Now, the thing to keep in mind when you're using these types of fins, you can use them without fins, but rare is the person that does not get a nice blister on their heel from the strap. Okay, so you typically want with these to wear boots. Now, given that being the case, you also have to consider the sizes based on that. If you were going with a full-footed one, which I think my next picture is, yeah. So there's a paddle type with the full foot. Now these you actually get sized to your foot. And oh, by the way, before you ask, because I know many of you who are newer divers or snorkelers with no intention on diving may ask the question. I've never heard of actual left and right fin. These are kind of universal as far as the foot. It's just literally the size is the only thing that you're looking to select. So when you go if you go selecting a full foot fin, then you want to make sure that the sizing of the company uses it turns out to be accurate. Many times, if you go to your more well-known dive online shops, or if you go into a actual brick and mortar, the sizing chart will give you an idea if they're what's the word I'm looking for, if they are accurately sized, or if they're large or small. I mean, you'll often see online reviews saying, okay, for instance, if you're buying boots, neoprene boots, are they sized large? Buy the next size larger or something like that. Then take that to note. But if going back to the open heel ones, since you're going to be wearing boots with these typically, you have to not only consider that sizing, but you have to consider how much bigger the size you have to go with based on the boots that you're wearing. So, for instance, I have, for certain types of diving, I have a much more firm and fairly longer than these, some Caravel paddle type fins. They're more rigid, and so they're good for strong currents, etc. And they're open heel like this, but I cannot use my 5mm neoprene boots with these. I typically dive with my 1mm boots, and because they're thinner, and because the heel that's on there, the rubber heel is thinner. It's not a thick, heavy-duty climb on the rocks type of heel like my 5mm boots are. So I actually buy my paddle fins a smaller size than I do my other fins that I typically wear my 5mm, because they're so the heels, the soles are so thick. So I need a much bigger size. If I took that boot off and tried to use my 1mm, or silly me, my bare feet with those, I'd have so much insane room in the pocket of the foot. It'd be silly to even try and dive with those. So that's a consideration. Now, and like I said, these are generally good. The paddle or conventional or blade fins are good for general diving, and they're Grace has got a toy. They're good for a strong current. If they're stiff enough. Like I said, you can get some that are a little bit more flexible, which may mean that they're not as good for a strong current. Now, another type that you can get, and this is actually for most non-strong current diving, are my favorite, are split fins. Now, again, here's a full foot version, twin jet, they're split fin, and then you also have, and this is like the ones I have. I have the Tusa split fins. I have a set in blue, but I've had them so long that they've started to come apart. Where you see the blue area, they've actually started to split. But I have some red ones now. And I absolutely, the first time I ever tried these, I fell in love with them. I love the split fins. I love the Tusas in particular because the outside wall of the fin is thicker. So it's got some weight to it. So and I tend to be foot heavy, and so this doesn't help the situation any. But because it's a thicker wall, it does create some stiffness to the outer wall. But the beauty of the split fins is the flexibility of the interior part going to the split means that your upstroke has almost the same propelling energy as the downstroke. So whereas typical paddle fins, you're only going to get a really good push from your normal kick, and it needs to be the full scissor kick. These are really great for flutter kick. I can, if I'm not dealing with really any current, I can literally, you talk about a relaxed dive, I can keep my feet fairly together and just literally kick at my ankles, because these are so efficient on up and downward movement. I can move very delicately around and move very comfortably, literally just by kicking at my ankles. And the other cool thing is, since I love to dive inverted, especially at places like Balmorhea, I'll get inverted and be cruising along, and just all I have to do is, if you can imagine this, so I'm upside down, literally straight upside down, so my head is just barely above the bottom, and my buoyancy control is such that I can literally just hover just a mere couple or 3 inches off of the bottom. And so all I have to do is bend at the knees so that my feet are pointed behind me, and then I can just cruise along just by flicking my ankles. So it's this cool little very relaxed mode. And then when you're doing filming with this, it just kind of is a neat effect. So very easy to do with these, but these are not good if you're diving in a strong current, because you have to push. You have to get a serious good kick with this, and you can't get that with the split fins as you can with the regular paddle or blade type. Okay. All right, another type that is more recently on the scene is what we call the pivot blade. Now, you'll see, again, You can typically find these both in the open heel and the full foot. This is an open heel type. And you'll notice that it's a lot like the regular conventional fin because it's a paddle, but it's got an intentionally designed flex point right in the middle, basically right at the tip of where the foot pocket is. Now, what this does is, and you can see there will be different variations on this, different approaches to how to make this work, but it's ultimately it's all the same idea, which is a kind of a springing effect there at the bend point. And then also a lot of them will show, and I think I have another version here. Yeah. There will be in the center area of the fin will be kind of a V-shaped, softer plastic for actually scooping the water. So what they've basically done is taken a little bit of the aspect of the split fins, which is that flexibility in the center of the fin, and added that, but not actually split it. So it just kind of, it does flex enough that it can scoop the water, and so, but the springing action kind of takes a little bit of the work off of you because there will be a nice delay off of that. Now, what I haven't seen is comments on how well these work in a strong current. My intuition is that they don't, but again, I could be wrong. I think I would tend to think that the more rigid, stiffer the fin, the better off you're going to be in a strong current. Okay, so basically this type kind of gives you some of the advantages of split fins, but because they do have the rigidity to them, you can do some of the alternative finning styles like frog kicks and stuff. It's kind of tough to do, and I've done it, but it's kind of tough to do a decent frog kick with split fins. You need the more rigid ones, and something like this kind of lends itself to that better. Now, I mentioned earlier about diving in like silt environments, and so what you have for those kind of environments are much shorter, much stiffer fins, and the most common that people use for that are what we call a jet fin or the force fins. Now, I think these are just the most horrible looking fins, and I thought these can't be, I thought these were like toy fins or something. But as it turns out, there's one company that makes the official force fins, and they're stiff, they're very short, but they are literally designed like fish fins. So they are actually very fast fins, but they're not very agile. The jet fins, on the other hand, give you more agility at the sacrifice of some speed, but these are still very fast. And you'll notice how short these fins are. They're very, very stiff, and some of the water flow happens, as you can see, the little openings, little vents, if you will. They're right past the foot pocket. These are a typical type that would be used in a high silt environment because you have better control over them. Your foot is not... it really comes down to this. Your foot is only as responsive, your kicking is only as responsive as you kind of feel it. So if the longer the fin that you have is stretched out from your foot, then you're going to have less sensitivity to what actually the fin is doing. Okay? So that's where these come in handy. Is something like a silted environment, because you can have very, very controlled kick. You can do a lot, pretty much all of your alternate style finnings you can do with this fin, because it's very stiff. But be forewarned that you may have to do a lot of work to work through to dive in other conditions. So again, it comes down to you need to at least consider getting different types of fins, different styles of fins for the different types of environments that you will find yourself diving in. So when you start looking at vacation spots, do your research on the types of diving that are available to you in that area. Now, one other aspect, one other thing to think about, I think that's all the pictures I have for here. Yeah. Another thing to think about is the straps. So let's go back and look at some of these. Now, obviously, with a full foot fin, straps are not an issue. But if you're wearing the open heel ones, look at the way the straps are here. Now, this is what we would call a universal type design. I could take these straps off of a Genesis Coronado fin, and I can put them on this fin because it's a universal type. So if I break the strap, no big deal. A Save a Dive kit that you should always have. I always recommend people have a Save a Dive kit, which should have replacement O-rings for your tanks, for your regulators, for it has zip ties to put your mouthpiece back on, because a common thing that actually happens with regulators that have been used a lot is the zip tie, and that's all that's holding the mouthpiece onto the regulator itself. Those can break or can just flat out slip off if they weren't put on tight. So having zip ties in your Save a Dive kit are important. Well, having mask straps and fin straps are important. But thing is, as you'll notice looking through these pictures, not all fins not all straps are designed the same. So if we go back and look at, let's look at, now this is a universal strap. So again, I could take this strap and I could put it on any of these other two, but I may not be able to use these. If I break a strap, I think these are proprietary. And in here, I can guarantee you wouldn't be able to use the same type of strap because of the way these are designed. And I don't think these are the same either. Now also, let me get my dog back up here. Now, a lot of your newer ones have these spring-loaded clamping types, some of which have ends on them that can clip onto a traditional fin, but some of them cannot, so they're very proprietary. So whatever fins you get, especially if you end up purchasing multiple styles, it's important that you research the type of straps that would take to replace it, so that you do have some spares for those types. Fortunately, all the fins that I have use the more traditional style of straps. So in my Save a Dive kit, I have 2 spare straps. I've never actually had to use one myself for me. I have bailed somebody else out before a couple of times where we were getting ready for a dive and they're slipping on their fins and snap, there goes the strap, and they're like, oh man, well, I can dive with one fin, which I never ever recommend. If any reason is a good reason to call a dive, any reason at all is a good reason to go, sorry, not going to do the dive. It is a bad idea to dive with just one fin. So fortunately, I had a Save a Dive kit. I said, no problem, got you covered. I looked, and he had the standard, traditional strap type. So I just whipped out one of my spares, gave it to him, and you just consider that's just something you want to keep in stock all the time. I like to keep at least 2 of everything that I can. So consider the strap types as you look at your fins. So so again, you have the choice of the full foot or the open heel. The full foot you typically wear without a boot, and you get sized right for your feet. The open heel allows you much more flexibility, but you pretty much have to wear some sort of a boot with them. But with that, you have to consider how big the sole is of your boot that you're going to choose, and so you may have to go with, in some cases, several sizes larger of a fin. Now, typically they come in like a extra small, medium, large, extra large type thing. So, for instance, fortunately, the Tusa fins that I have, the split fin that you saw there, typically those come larger. So where I would normally wear, based on their sizing chart, a medium, I actually, or I would actually wear. You would think I would wear a medium, but because Tusa has theirs sized larger, if I were going with a very, very common type boot, 1 mil with a thin heel or thin sole on it, I would actually go with a small. But in order to accommodate the monstrous 5 mil boot that I have to go with the medium. Which, if I take my boot off and I just go barefooted in there, I've got my foot can practically disappear inside the foot pocket, and the straps can be pulled fully tight and almost be flat against the open area, the pocket of the foot, which is pretty sad. So consider that. Consider the type of straps. Consider what your kick is like. I don't recommend you do this until you've got your kick down. Whatever you got for your fins, even if they're cheapo Walmart types, get your kick down first. And I try to, as I'm working with students, I point out, and it's again not to rag them about it, but I point out the way their kick is. And I try to get them intentionally to stretch their legs out instead of, as soon as I see the knees getting bent a lot, I know they're going to be reverting to a bicycle kick. So as soon as you get your kick down, that's when you start looking for the types of fins that will work for you. Now, if you go to a dive shop that has their own pool, etc., they may have a number of sets that you can try out, so you can actually get in the water and kind of work with your finning styles, see which ones feel more comfortable. In lieu of that, the best you can hope for is just to make sure you get it sized correctly based on whether you're going full foot or open heel, and whether you're going what type of boot you're going to be diving with. And at that point, now it's okay. Think about the places that you're going to be diving. Are you going to be diving in a lot of current type diving like Cozumel, along the eastern seaboard, especially along like Boca Raton, those kinds of places where there's a lot of current? Then you may want to go with the stiffer paddle or the pivot blade type. If you're going to be doing a lot of wreck diving, or if you're getting ready for your technical certification for like cave diving, then you definitely want to look at picking up some of the force fins, or I would probably recommend more the jet fin type. If it's just going to be more general diving where it's typically not a current, I think you would probably be very pleased with the split fins. Like I said, very, very little effort to use those for, and so again, the less hard you work, the less air you're going to go through too. So you can actually make your dives last longer if you're not having to work so hard on the dive. So hopefully those of you either watching live, which we have a couple of people in the chat room, check the social, nothing in the social. Hopefully you watching live or watching on YouTube later find some of those suggestions about the fins helpful. As we start to wind down here, since we haven't been able to really talk about movies, I just thought I would share with you all, in case you're interested, what I watch, things that shows that I follow or am interested in, and you'll kind of see a pattern emerge as we go along here. So let me switch slideshows here. All right. So one of the shows that actually came in too late. I think we came in after season 4. So one of these days I probably will do a binge watch and catch up. But is Castle, starring Nathan Fillion and I'm probably massacring her name, but Stana Katic. Um, he is a mystery writer who kind of connected with the police department to tag along to get ideas for stories, and ends up using his mystery writing sleuthing capability to actually help solve crimes. And then of course the chemistry between the two characters built over time, and eventually they finally, with this last season, finally got married. So that usually spells the end of most series, so we'll see what happens. But it's well written, it's funny, while somewhat suspenseful, but in many aspects it's kind of formulaic, because you can always one of the things that's kind of funny, it would almost be like a drinking game, if I were still into drinking games, is when they have the repartee. Well, when it seems like they've hit a block in their investigation. Well, it would be it would be great if we had this information, and just as if on cue, one of the two detectives that works with them will suddenly pop in. Well, I think I can help with this. Well, I think I have an answer for you there, or we may have a lead on that. And they come up with something that just happened to be exactly what they were talking about at that moment. So it's kind of neat, kind of funny, kind of predictable, but it becomes almost comical when you're like, and cue the detective coming in. But some good little sub-stories going on with the various characters. So but it's a very entertaining show. And I'm actually a big Nathan Fillion fan, because he was in one of my, is probably my favorite show, second only to Star Trek. Oops. And let me set. There we go. And it's Firefly. So this was a series that was on Fox, and they absolutely destroyed it. This was a fantastic series. Those of us who are fans of this show, we kind of call ourselves browncoats, because we kind of buck the establishment, and I'm definitely an anti-establishment kind of guy. And you may, depending on your age, you may see some people that you recognize from a number of movies and series before this, and they've since come into doing a number of things afterward. For instance, on the left, you've got Adam Baldwin, who was in a number of, he's just been kind of a supporting or character role in a number of war movies, and he was in Independence Day, and I hear that they are finally making a sequel, and I think he is actually getting a role in it, which will be cool. As a matter of fact, it'd be interesting if he got his role in that movie. While it was very small, over this amount of time, I'm sure he's gotten promotions, so it'd be interesting to see what they do with this character. Jewel Staite there on the next to him. I'd never really seen her before, but she went on then to be doing a lot of sci-fi movies, and then also she was on, I think, the last season of Stargate Atlantis. And of course, Ron Glass, you may remember from Barney, a old late 70s, I think, or early 80s police department sitcom kind of thing. Marina Baccarin later went on to have a recurring role on Stargate SG-1, and also was the main protagonist on the failed reboot of V, a reboot from another 80s or late 70s, I can't remember which series. And there's Nathan Fillion there as the captain of the ship. And then all the way on the right, you may recognize her from a number of series. She was on the failed, what was it called? The Sarah Connor Chronicles. She was a cyborg, so it was interesting. And then she's been in a number of other shows, I think. And she had a recurring role on another show that we follow that you'll see. She had a recurring role that didn't last too long on Arrow. So this was one of my favorite series, second again only to Star Trek. And those of us who were big fans, we sent lots of emails and letters and that kind of thing to push for some sort of resolution, and so that actually resulted in the movie Serenity, that was moderately successful, but because they killed off a couple of the characters, a number of us who were fans were like, what in the world are you doing? So anyway, but make a note of, you will see Adam Baldwin here a little bit later as well. So another crime series that we kind of got interested in after a couple seasons that it actually was on is Bones. The main characters there, I forget her first name, but Deschanel, she's the sister to Zoe Deschanel, who's on The New Girl. And then, why am I drawing a blank on his name? The guy, it's the co-star there. I cannot believe I'm drawing. David Boreanaz. He was started out with a recurring role in Buffy the Vampire Slayer with what's her face? Can't remember now. I'm drawing so many blanks on names right now. And then he got his own spin-off series, Angel. So here he is on this. Not as fun a character in this one, although the latest episode was a very noir approach, very stylistic, throwback style with old clothing and film style, etc. It was a fun romp of nostalgia as far as the approach. So it was it's really cool just seeing a lot of the forensic science that goes into looking into murders and that kind of thing. So very well done show with a lot of interesting subplots. And believe it or not, I mean, what can you say about a show that has a member of ZZ Top playing a recurring role as the parent of one of the characters? I mean, seriously. And then, of course, then it's got also Deschanel's character, Bones' character's father's recurring role of Ryan O'Neal, of all people. So, and he actually was in this little romp of an episode that just aired. So you catch it on Hulu Plus if you are a subscriber. Let's see. So here's, on the far right, here's Adam Baldwin again, and another show that has been out one season, and it's going to be, of course, this is an old picture. It's actually coming back, I think, in January, late January. An interesting kind of a post-apocalyptic, not quite zombie type situation, but just where people are very have a disease, it kills very quickly, and they just happen to be the last Navy ship, and they've got this. They happen to have somebody who was working on a cure before everybody knew exactly how bad this virus was. And that's that doctor on the left. I'm not familiar with the actor who's the captain on this ship. He's actually the commander, because he's actually wearing a silver oak leaf cluster. So in the Navy, I believe that's commander. Because a captain in the Navy wears the full bird, the full eagle. So they'd be like a colonel in the Air Force and the Army and the Marines, I guess. So wearing the silver oak leaf, I guess that puts him as a commander. So very good series. Had a nice cliffhanger at the end. So if you have a chance, if you haven't gotten into this show and you're interested in checking it out, it's pretty cool. You know, a little battle with a little bit of fox and hound with the Russians, as well as kind of seeing what happens to our country after everything's kind of fallen apart and government is kind of fallen in ruins because so many people have died. It's some interesting politics stuff that's going on. So anxious to see the new season 2 premiere, I think, again in January. So now back to the more of the comic book genre. I grew up a DC guy, DC Comics. The only exception in the Marvel universe that I liked was Iron Man. There was just something very cool about the whole Iron Man costume, but I was not into I was not into the Captain America, and I wasn't into, as a kid, I wasn't in as much into, the X-Men and all that stuff. I liked Superman and Batman especially, and the Justice League and all that. Well, um, I guess kind of on the heels of the Dark Knight trilogy of movies, they decided to reboot a number of the DC comics. And DC Comics is pretty much generally sucking when it comes to what they're doing with that franchise. Whereas Stan Lee has done a very consistent and thorough job of keeping the whole universe working, even with really, really wild tertiary characters. And that's one, I can't believe I don't have that on here. One that I'm following, and I really love the way it's being laid out, is Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't believe I forgot to put that on here. It's well done, ties nicely to even the movies. I mean, Stan Lee has done a fantastic job of keeping some synchronicity there. But, the fact that DC can't even influence the actors to play their characters. I loved Christian Bale as the Batman, and I actually can't remember his name. I actually liked the guy who played Superman in this last one, even though it was quite of an interesting twist on the canon of the Superman origin story, and certainly on Lois Lane. And I guess they got him to come back to play Superman in Superman vs. Batman, but they got Ben Affleck, and I'm sorry. I will not see this movie. I will not see that movie because Ben Affleck is in there. I don't care what they do with it. It's just the stupid decision. But anyway, for some odd reason, DC decided that they didn't like the Green Arrow. But they wanted the character. So they just call him the Arrow, which I am not pleased with, but it's taken a kind of a darker approach, a la the Dark Knight series, and so I've been at least enjoying the twists that they have on the canon. So you can see kind of the characters they have them now. What's interesting is you have they're at least working the crossovers right. So you have one of the characters to Green Arrow. I'm going to call him what he's supposed to be. Green Arrow's to the left of the Green Arrow is Felicity. She is the computer geek person of the team who's able to do all this cool stuff, and she's kind of been helping cross things over to another series that is spin-off from here, and it's The Flash. Now, interesting thing about The Flash is, like Spider-Man, The Flash has had a number of iterations in TV-dom. So far, I like what they've been doing with this. And what's really cool is back in the 90s, there was another Flash TV series starring Wesley. I think that was his first name. Wesley. I can't remember his last name. Wesley Stipp, who was a kind of a throb on the soap operas back in the day. But what's interesting is, here he is. This is the guy that was in the 90s playing the Flash, and it was pretty cool. They've got him. This character is playing the father to this character. The backstory being, as a kid, some yellow blur came in and actually killed his mother, and his dad got framed for the murder and has been spending all these years in prison. And Barry has been trying to solve the mystery. Well, it turns out now, as the last episode, we have finally a confrontation between him and the other Flash. I would say the Yellow Flash. Some neat twists in this, and they've already had a back-to-back kind of episode where there was a crossing over and actually a little battle between the Green Arrow and the Flash, which was pretty cool. So And you're seeing the genesis of a number of the metahumans on this show, where this, in other words, this plays to a lot of those kinds of anomalies, whereas on the Arrow, it's more of the quasi-believable villains that come out, you know, using more tech and just sinister stuff and the chemicals, as opposed to a particle wave explosion that affected all these different people different ways, and it's created all these metahumans. So yeah, interesting little homage. And they both had the same with the 90s Flash. He would, if he had like an energy reserve, if you will, he had to eat, have certainly a high protein, high calorie diet, and he would actually become super weak if he didn't, if he used his, there was like a time thing. He had to watch this watch type, a smart watch basically, that let him know if he was pushing himself to a point where it could kill him. Whereas the version of that in the current Flash is simply because he is operating at such high velocities and high metabolic rate that he just simply gets very, very famished, and he can get weakened if he literally burns his calories up. So, but it's not quite as rigid as this version. So, liking that show so far. Now, another series which looks like it is, again, through fan support. I think it's been on for 3 seasons, maybe 4. They're 3 seasons. I think they're finally coming back for a final season to kind of close things out, but it's going to be like a mini season. This is one of those shows that kind of had more potential than I think they really took advantage of. Has a number of actors from other series, as well as a number of other series. The girl plays the main character in Continuum. You can tell by the special suit that she's wearing. Among other things, you may or may not recognize her as the Orion cadet, Orion slave girl cadet in the Star Trek reboot. She's the one who is that Uhura kind of is rooming with and bursts in on when she is in a little romp with James Kirk. But you almost wouldn't recognize her in all the green makeup. But she's the main character here. The guy is in the policeman that she's working with. She basically gets kind of stuck back in the past with the number of these other characters who have figured a way to go back in the past, and they want to change the past so that the big corporations can't take over, blah, blah, blah. Same old we hate big corporations thing. But so she ends up working with this cop, and this cop was in another superhero kind of series that was kind of like the X-Men. And so he had special powers. I think his was he could shoot like balls of electricity, etc. So he was a metahuman, so it's interesting. Again, I'm just really drawing a blank on the names. I see John in the chat room was thanking us for talking about the fins. Good. He'll be able to check that out later in the YouTube to see it. Good grief. The girl standing next to the cop there, she was the Avatar in the series, the Gene Roddenberry series Andromeda. So she was Andromeda. And she was in a number of other movies and things like that, but that was the big thing that she was in for years. The guy on the far right was in another sci-fi series, The Last Wave or The Fourth Wave, something like that, where he was part of this alien species called the Gwa, who are coming to gradually take over the Earth. And so now he's a bad guy in this show, but now he's kind of partnered up with the main character to change the future the right way or something. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the final season. Defiance. I think it's a couple seasons in. Again, a futuristic sci-fi post invasion from multiple species in the war, the interstellar war, the inter-alien war, devastated a lot of the Earth, and so you see kind of a slight Mad Max homage feel to things. Looking at the vehicles, you see very Mad Max-ish kind of designs and weird interactions with the various species, and yeah, wow. So far, I'm liking that show. It's taking a weird tour. I do not know what's got our dogs going crazy here, but kind of taking a weird twist at the end of the last season, so I'm looking for, and I think that comes back in January as well, so I'm looking forward to that show. This one, interestingly, again, tying some of these shows together, this one stars Julie Benz, who had a recurring role on Angel with David Boreanaz. So she plays the quasi-mayor, or was the mayor of Defiance, which was actually St. Louis. You'll see the arch, the Gateway Arch, what's left of it, figuring a lot in this show. And so they've repurposed the city and they call it Defiance. So it's interesting. Of course, Doctor Who. I followed off and on the series from way back in the 70s. It's actually started in the 60s, but I was a big fan of Tom Baker as Doctor Who. Wasn't a fan of a lot of the other ones, but some of them were good. Kind of picked it back up with when BBC America started running it. So now we've had 1, 2, 3. We're now on our 4th Doctor Who since they kind of spun it back up. But this guy here is kind of like one of the older ones, with the exception of probably the first one, to be brought in. I'm not too sure I like this guy. I liked the last 3 pretty well. And the stories just keep getting better, and the production values keep getting better. And, of course, there's just a whole new generation of Whovians following the series. So hopefully they'll keep the production values up and keep the writing up, and hopefully this actor will grow on me. So far, I'm not sure I like him too much. Falling Skies, coming back for its final season. I need to get this whole thing on Blu-ray. I'll probably wait till that last season, though, when I'm sure that they will have the special wingding, got every kind of behind-the-scenes thing. This is a Noah Wyle production, who's the main character with his family, and this is again an alien species invades Earth. They're battling them. Then they find out that alien species is really subjugated slaves to another alien species, and then another third alien species comes in and has had a long-standing intergalactic or interstellar war with these species, and so the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. So, and then you have a hybrid, love child kind of thing who has special powers, and so we had a tragic cliffhanger at the end of of this past season. This has had some interesting. Noah Wyle has been in a number of different shows and series, although he's one of those people that you kind of go, I've seen him somewhere, and then you realize, oh, he was that series guy. And then they just added in this last season, they added, I'm trying to remember her name. She played in the Marilyn Monroe movie with Ashley Judd, where they were kind of both sides of, Norma Jean. One played Norma Jean, the other played Marilyn Monroe. Her dad was I can't believe I remember her name. Blonde girl. I should call up the cast. I've got a dog tangled up in my headphones. Matter of fact, let me do that. being cast. Falling Skies. Don't start barking. I've got a note. Mira Sorvino, yes. Thank you. My lovely wife and producer brought it in. Yes. Her dad was famous. He played typically either cops or played mobster types, and so she hadn't seen her in anything in a while, but then here she came out in this and playing a pretty awesome character in it. But we'll see where this goes for the final season. And oh, by the way, one of the other characters, Ryan Robbins. See if I can pull him up on that. Let me switch to a screen region here. This guy, Ryan Robbins, he was actually in another series that didn't last long. It actually started as a web series, Sanctuary, starring Amanda Tapping from Stargate SG-1. I loved that series, and he was kind of a werewolf guy, and loved him in that show. And so, but then that got canceled, and so he's been in this one, and also towards the end of this last season, he was also in with a recurring character, another time traveler in Continuum. So busy guy. All right, let me bump through these again. I got dogs just pushing. All right. One I was not thinking. Come here. One I was not thinking I would actually like at all. Because I thought, all right, they're avoiding working with the real characters. I thought, why aren't they doing something that is another kind of a spin from or attachment to the Justice League? And I figured they probably can't, because this is on Fox, whereas Arrow and Flash are on CW. But again, DC Comics, you guys can't do anything right. I'm sorry. So what they've done is they've kind of rebooted the origin, not only of Bruce Wayne, as you see in the lower left corner here, but also some of the biggest villains. Basically, this show revolves around James Gordon, commissioner, who would later become commissioner. Right now, he's just a detective. So you see the genesis of the Penguin there on the left, Oswald Cobblepot. You see the genesis of Catwoman, which is interesting because she's kind of a kid crush now. She's actually was spending some time living with Bruce Wayne, again not in the canon, but so you kind of see where their romantic thing that you saw in the later, more recent movies, you kind of get they're kind of feeding you where that started. It actually started much earlier. Jada Pinkett, Will Smith's wife, is a very vicious character, Fish Mooney in this. I'm not remembering the character from the comics, but I'm sure somebody who's a aficionado is going to go, oh, yeah, of course. It's my dogs just really make a mess of things. I'm sure those who are much crazier about the history of the Batman mythos will go, oh yeah, Fish Mooney was this. And then of course you see, and she's only shown up a couple of times, but of course you immediately know who she's going to be is Ivy Pepper. She of course later becomes Poison Ivy. And interestingly, yet another reboot is you have Edward Nygma. He is like the Bill Nye the Science Guy for the police department. He's the one that does all this, studies all the ballistics and the science behind the murders. He's kind of like their bones. But it's interesting. You already hear that, hey, he comes in with a riddle me this kind of thing. So I'm wondering at what point that he's going to start to turn into, what's going to be the catalyst that flips him to become a bad guy. And of course, Ivy's dad was I'm trying to remember now. Was he caught or captured? He was framed for the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents, and so they came and got him. I'm trying to remember if he was killed in the process or just arrested, but he was not a nice guy anyway. But so it'll probably be one of these I hate cops because of this kind of thing. So so far it's it's okay. It's okay. It's dark. They're keeping all of these kind of dark. So series that probably won't last much longer, but has been interesting. It's a Stephen King series, Haven, about a town, or actually a town of people. Though we're finding it doesn't just limit itself to the town, who have what they call the Troubles, which is basically these weird things. Or if you call them anything, they'd be like twisted, uncontrolled metahumans. They've been afflicted by these generational curses, if you will, where different people have different afflictions that affect other people in weird, very twisted, very Stephen King kind of ways, and so that's been. Matter of fact, they didn't have a show this past Friday. So that's been an interesting show so far, but I have a funny feeling based on what they've been doing lately with it, this will probably be it probably won't last much longer. It'll probably be the last season, but we'll see what happens. Helix has only been on one season. A very interesting twist on the end of the world kind of thing with a tucked away secret lab that's run by a corporation, but kind of quasi-controlled by governments, and they have a virus outbreak there, and the CDC is called in to try and figure out, and the main character there is brothers with the guy on the right there in the light blue. And that guy is like one of the main scientists of this weird twisted kind of corporation. You will find out there's layers. Definitely some hints of something like the Umbrella Corporation in can't believe I'm drawing a blank on that series. A series of movies where the Umbrella Corporation has had this virus, the T virus, that turns everybody else into twisted mutants except for the main character, who she just goes around is able to kick everybody else's butt. It's kind of like that. The Helix is kind of like the Umbrella Corporation, but not quite as wild yet. They still could go there. Good grief, quit jumping up on me. It still could go there. I was kind of surprised that it didn't get canceled, because I don't think it was getting the kind of viewership that it really, I think, deserved. But we'll see. It is coming back, so we'll see what happens. I think that is it. Nope. The 100, a new show, just finished. Well, I guess through the first season. Again, post-apocalyptic world. We've ruined the environment, and we had to. Different countries escaped to orbit the planet in various space stations, which they eventually maneuvered and connected all together to become one big arc. And so they were up there for a couple of generations, and now a number of things have caused them to, loss of integrity of the ship or the station. They took these kids that were essentially criminals, and they said, okay, we're going to banish you to the planet, and if you survive, great. If not, no, that's your punishment. Well, they do, but then they learn that there's other people who actually survived. Some are mutants and, deformed, and some have been living underground in a very twisted quasi-utopian kind of society, but they can't go on the surface, so it's kind of like the the Eloi from the Time Machine, and then finally the whole arc ends up coming apart or separating, and all the pieces come down, and some people survive, some people don't. And so now you've got some that are captured by the ones underground, and you have what they call the grounders, who are at war now with the space people, and so the sky people. So the interesting factions, and kids coming of age and learning that the cruel world is even more cruel than they thought. And so interesting character development, interesting psychology studies too, as well as the whole sci-fi future apocalyptic kind of world thing. And I think, oh no, just caught this. Now this is interesting too. We recorded the 2-hour premiere, which was really just 2 episodes back to back. And if I understand it now, this is not going to be a full-on series, kind of like Ascension that's coming up. Matter of fact, is that tomorrow night or Monday night? I think this is only a short duration series, but I could be wrong. And it looked interesting because it was kind of, as we watched it, it kind of bore a lot of resemblance to another series that lasted, I think, 3 seasons, which we really liked, but they actually had an ending to it, which was Warehouse 13. So this is kind of a twist on Indiana Jones / Warehouse 13 mythos, and also some aspects of Alphas, which was another series that didn't last very long. And again, those were kind of meta-humans involved there, people with extraordinary capabilities, mutated. Well, these people are just like super IQ, and so they kind of they're just exceptionally smart and aware, and etc. It's got Rebecca. Oh, I can never pronounce her last name right. She used to be married to John Stamos. She was Mystique in the X-Men movies. I don't think she can fit quite into the blue skin paint now, but she's still in fairly decent shape. But she is like a special forces kind of girl who happens to meet up with, again, Noah Wiley, who I think produces this show as well. He is the librarian, which I did not realize until researching this show afterward, was its own trilogy, or maybe it was 4 movies, called The Librarian, and he was the librarian. And he's basically reprising his role and kind of handing off the baton to this group of people who the 3 younger people here were candidates to become the new librarian if he were to die. It's kind of like passing the baton again, Warehouse 13-ish feel. They were the ones who did not actually answer the mysterious letter asking them to come for an interview. And so all of the other candidates were killed off, and so they're the only ones left. And so he was reluctantly working with Rebecca, her character, to both find them, help them, and then ultimately it turns out where he's kind of handing the baton while he goes to find what happened to the rest of the library, which is like the warehouse. It's got Jean Larroquette as kind of he's kind of taking the baton, if you will, of the role that Bob Newhart, believe it or not, played in at least one of the Librarian movies. And he actually reprised his role in a quasi-spiritual form in this. He was only visible in a special mirror in this opener. series, and so did, believe it or not, I did not know that Jane Curtin was also in the Librarian movies, and she also reprised her role, but they just basically have kind of handed it off to them. But it looks like Noah Wiley's character will kind of come in and out as hints from the rest of the series look like. So John Larroquette, you probably know from a number of like Night Court and shows like that. I always forget his name. The guy on the ride, let me just look it up. He was in a series that lasted, I think, 3 seasons or maybe 4, and I loved it. Starred Timothy Timothy Hutton, and I loved the series. I'm just really disappointed. It was another TNT show. I'm disappointed that it didn't continue on, but that show was Leverage. And let's see, what is this guy's name? Christian Kane. Yeah, he was the muscle, the hitter, as they called him in that show. But interestingly, he's playing another, high IQ guy who was kind of somewhat casting to type. He was working the oil field, driving a truck and everything, but he's got the super IQ, so it's kind of cool. So I'm liking his character in here. He had a great role in Leverage. The comments that he made were just perfect. Great writing for him. I'm hoping that they continue the writing in this show to be as woody as it was well done. It reminded me, the writing of The Librarians reminded me a lot of how Joss Whedon writes for his series. So definitely, I'm going to definitely be following this show for however long it lasts, unless it just gets silly. But now it's driven me to want to go look up the other Librarian movies because, and I don't think I have a picture. No, this last one. Interestingly, let me pull that up. Noah Wiley, The Librarian. And The Curse of the Judas Child. So that was from 2008. Let me switch to screen region. You can see. If you look carefully, see if it'll let me show the picture. Look who is, again, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon here. Look who is his Noah Wiley's sidekick here. None other than Stana Katic from Castle. So we've come full circle in tying all our shows together. So I'm going to have to go look at this series because this is like an Indiana Jones thing. And it really will help me understand now some of the mythos going into this new series. So I'll have to go back and look at, I guess there were 4 movies, The Librarian, and it was each of the. And interestingly, with The Librarians, they did the kind of emblazoned subtitle of the episode for each of those. So like I said, the series opener was a 2-hour, really it was 2-hour dual episode back-to-back kind of thing that flowed together as a single storyline, but each had its own title, which was interesting. The first one was about King Arthur's crown, and then the other one was the Sword of King Arthur, because it was all about Excalibur. So I'm gonna have to look up these movies probably on Hulu or Netflix, see if those are available, see if I can catch up on the mythos now, so I can understand more about how the library figures in and understand more of how all that works, because I imagine I'm going to find even more hints to that remind me of Warehouse 13, which I thought was a fun show. So those are that. I don't think that's absolutely all inclusive of the shows we watch. That pretty much covers the most of the series that we're pretty consistent watching. They've since canceled series that we really, really liked and no longer get to see. So, but those are the ones we currently set our DVR, because we almost never get to actually be home to watch these. Every once in a while we can, but because our evenings are so full, what ends up happening is we end up having to do like a binge session. For me, that's usually late at night, after I've finished everything else I need to do, finished with band practice or whatever it is, or finished over volunteering over at a Pet's Wish. Now Vala wants up. That's usually my prime binge watching times. I'll watch stuff that was on the past few days. Every once in a while, there's like several days that I miss, and I end up like, oh, did I totally miss 8 episodes of whatever? So those are just some of the things they watch that we watch. So I'd be curious to know if any of you also share those particular likes. If you do, then we have something in common besides a love of scuba diving and tech type stuff. All right, man, it's already. See, even by myself, let me get Vala here. Let me switch to a wide view here. Here's Vala. I do not know what's got our dogs all crazy out in the backyard there. I've got to get them quieted down. It's getting late. So let's hit some administrivia here before we shut things down. All right, so next dive club meeting, since we're skipping the December one for the Christmas holiday season, and I do say Christmas, I don't say Happy Holidays. January 15th at 7 p.m. out at Rudy's Restaurant. Hopefully we'll see you there. And I do have my dive classes listed for the 2015 season. So starting everything off the 23rd through the 26th of April. Sign up the first week of April. The next class scheduled for 20 through the 31st of May. Then followed by 25th through the 28th of June. Followed by the 23rd through the 26th of July. Then the 27th through the 30th of August. And finally, the last scheduled basic class, 24th through the 27th of September. Now, if you want to take an advanced class or rescue class or start your internship as a dive master, we can certainly do those. That's basically on an on-demand kind of thing. I would prefer to do at least 2 people for the advanced class, because that way they can work off of each other, and so I can observe how they work together, and rather than me being in the middle of that part of the training. For each of these classes, if you'd like to sign up for them, please sign up no later than the first week of that month. You can sign up as early as you want, but no later than the first week, because I don't maintain a stock of the training materials, so it keeps the cost down. You simply sign up, and then I place the order for your study materials. Once that comes in, I get it to you, and then you have your self-study time. So again, those are the classes. You can also see that on our website and Facebook page. If you are looking for air fills, which not a lot of people are this time of the year because the temps at the lake are dropping. It's probably, I'll bet you the lake temps right now are about 54 to 55. If you are looking for air fills, first go check out Mike McCarson at the Broke Mill RV Park, which is out on Highway 90 West. If you are heading out on Highway 90 towards the lake and you come to, you go drive under the final part of the new loop around Del Rio, they are immediately past that intersection on the right. You can't miss them. Or just give him a call ahead of time so he knows you're coming out, so you can make sure that the system's spun up. It's a big cascade system, and so it's normally going to have air in the big cascade tanks, but if he doesn't get a lot of requests for air fills, then eventually he lets the pressure out of that. So he'd have to make sure he spins up the compressor to fill those tanks. So give him a call ahead of time. Just call 830-719-2935. That number again, 830-719-2935. And again, I'll probably never run out of saying this or run out of a need for saying this, because we do really need the help. A Pet's Wish here in Del Rio, Texas, the local pet rescue, really does need consistent volunteers. We need folks in the morning and in the evening for a basic routine, which involves either taking the dogs out of their pens from overnight and putting them in their little runs, and feeding and watering them, and then in the evening, and cleaning the dishes. And then in the evening, basically the reversal of the process. Feeding and watering the dogs, getting their last constitutional, and then bringing them in and putting them to bed for the evening. Also, if during the day, if you happen to be like a stay-at-home mom kind of thing, and you'd like to help out, there's a number of things that they could really use help with during the day too. You know, like cleaning some of the crates, a lot of administrative paperwork, managing all the animals they have there, because they have cats and dogs there. So they're always looking for volunteers, and it's really better if they can have somebody who's dedicated to be there on a regular basis, whatever that regularity is. Tara and I volunteer every Monday night. So we're there from 6 till whenever. If there's a lot of help, it's a shorter evening, 8:30 maybe. When there's not a lot of help and a lot to do, we've been there as late as midnight. But that's why it's so desperate that we get plenty of volunteers that can be consistent, because the more people you have that can be consistent, the less slips through the cracks to wait for somebody who does show up. The animals get taken care of the way they should be, and things get done quicker. Many hands make work light. If you would like to keep up with the goings on, you can visit our dive club page. Just go to delriodiveclub.com. Or if you want to stay more interactive, check us out on Facebook. Just look for Del Rio Dive Club. How about that? Or you can send us a message through Skype. Just look for TGWD, which of course stands for Two Guys Who Dive. And of course, if you would like to send me email directly, just send it to robert.wade@cetifox.net. Or you can follow me on Twitter. Just look for Robert CFP, Charlie Foxtrot Papa, or it stands for Ceti Fox Productions, actually. So you can just follow me on Twitter, and if you follow me, I will follow you. I promise. I'm consistent like that. So again, hope Robert Scuba Bob feels better, so he can be here next week. We're fast running out of shows for the 2014 season, so gearing up. Need to start building my list up of movies for our first episode of 2015, and just we haven't got that much time left for Christmas. So if you're a scuba diver or you love a scuba diver, go out and find some really cool stuff for that loved one. If you're looking online, I really highly recommend. Again, we don't get any kind of sponsorship or anything. So this is just purely our own experience and recommendations based on that. So we get no kickbacks. So I highly recommend you check out divers-supply.com or Leisure Pro, all one word, leisurepro.com. They pretty much are the unbeatable prices for things across the board for scuba diving. So go check them out if you're looking for stuff. Definitely, if you've got a local dive shop in LDS, support them. But if you're on a tight budget and you want to get the best bang for your buck, it's going to be hard to beat the prices you can get at online places like Divers Supply and Leisure Pro. So I hope you gained some beneficial knowledge, and apologize for the dogs barking. I do not know what's got our animals riled up, but I'm about to go find out as we sign off here. So hopefully we will see you next week on another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.